Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. I've read 11 books this month, so let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I read this month was Night by Elie Wiesel. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This is a memoir of Elie Wiesel's survival of the Holocaust. He and his family are taken to one of the Nazi concentration camps where he encounters the harsh reality of losing his innocence, losing his family, and coming to the realization that men can be extremely evil. This book is eloquently written, and despite the heavy and traumatically painful events that take place, the tone of this book is very casual. Going into this book, I did not expect it to be written so calmly because the narrator witnesses all of these terrible things that alters his life. A huge part of this book is a father-son relationship. Elie and his father rely on each other for their survival that they are forced to endure. Reading from his perspective, we can see his suffering and anguish, but mostly we can see his strength. This book was very powerful and made me think about how we can do really horrible things to each other, but also how we can survive them. I think everyone should read this book. The next book I read was Intelligence in Animals. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It describes the many and varied ways in which animals use their intelligence. It opens up the secret world of animal behavior and communication. This was a very informative and insightful book. Then I read Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This book starts off showing how today's men manifest their masculinity using money. For instance, the narrator likes to buy furniture and he likes to surround himself with a bunch of stuff. He's pretty much content with his life. However, he suffers from insomnia and struggles to sleep. He decides to go to a support group for terminal diseases. He pretends to have a disease in order to seek comfort, and when he cries and lets go, this helps him sleep. However, this is ruined by a woman named Marla. So then he meets a guy named Tyler, and together they form a fight club to help him release all of his frustration. The narrator wants to feel something because he's just desensitized. But the fight club quickly gets out of hand and morphs into something that he cannot control any longer. The book really focuses more on the characters and their fight to identify who they are. This book was very dark, but also very comical and chock full of crazy. The next book that I read was Gemina by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a science fiction and it's the sequel to Illuminae. So in Illuminae, one of the planets is attacked by terrorists. Some people find a way to escape and the terrorists go after them because they don't want the rest of the universe to know that it was them that attacked their planet. In Gemina, we are on the space shuttle Heimdall, where we follow 2 new characters and they experience the second wave of the assault. This book was really unique and really fun to read. Then I read All the Single Ladies by Rebecca Traister. I give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. This book describes how single women today have more economic independence than ever before. It focuses on the notion that women today tend to marry later on in life or not at all, and how that choice impacts society. The book presents a thorough analysis of the limited options that women had in the past and how that has drastically changed today. Back then, most women married at a really young age and were wholly dependent on their husbands for income and social and economic stability. This book was extensively researched. For me, it was hard to get through because there was just so much statistics and percentages, and it was just thrown at me and I had a hard time retaining all of this information. And she put a very negative connotation on marriage today, and I didn't really agree with what she was saying most of the time. This is a really feministic book. Then I read A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This is the third book to A Song of Ice and Fire. I absolutely love this book. Considering how long it was, I went through it pretty fast. I set a goal for myself to read this book throughout the whole month, but I finished it within like 2 weeks. But that's because I sat down and read 100 pages here and there. But it was so good, really good. The next book I read was The Last Musician by Maxwell. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a fantasy with elements of time travel. It takes place in the past in New York. There are a few people who have magic and they are called Magius, but they have to hide who they are. Any Magiuses who enters Manhattan becomes trapped by an invisible force called the Brink. They can't ever leave the city because their powers would get stripped and they probably would die. We follow our main character, Esta, who has the ability to time travel, and so she uses the skill to travel back to the year 1901 where she has to steal an ancient book before the magician can destroy it. I really enjoyed this book. I flew through this book, I read it really fast, and it was highly enjoyable. There's also some twists in here that are unexpected. Actually, I didn't expect what happened. It wasn't predictable. No, it wasn't predictable. Then I read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. This is the 4th book to the Throne of Glass series. This book was so good. You guys should read the series if you haven't already. The next book that I read was I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maurene. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. We follow our main character, Desi, who excels at everything she puts her mind to. However, she fails at romance. Her flirtation attempts just backfires and she embarrasses herself every time she tries to talk to a guy she's interested in. So she devises a guide based on Korean dramas that her father loves to watch. She is so committed to getting this guy's attention that she resorts to some pretty psychotic things. Overall, I didn't really enjoy this book. I just felt that it was too predictable and it just wasn't my cup of tea. Then I read The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. This book was so good. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This is a historical fiction mystery set in the 1940s. It follows our main character, Ayla Quinn, and at the beginning of the book, her mother dies, so her father sends her and her brother to live in Sterling, a town where her mother grew up, because he has to fight in World War II. So when she arrives at this town, she notices that strange things are happening, and she discovers quickly that the town is cursed. They refer to this curse as the Disappearances because every 7 years something vanishes. For example, like in the beginning they can't smell flowers, they can't smell food, they can't see their reflections in mirrors, and they can't even drink. The people in this town are looking for someone to blame, and they point their fingers to Elia's mother as the one to have caused this curse. But Elia isn't taking it. She's like, my mother did not set off this curse, so she sets off on her own, with a group of her friends, to solve this mystery. And once I found out what was going on, I was like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I did not see that coming, and I really appreciated it. And yes, you should go read this book because this book was awesome. The last book that I read was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a book based on a true story. It is set in the 1800s and it follows our main character Agnes, who is charged with the murder of 2 men. She is moved to an isolated farm in northern Iceland to await execution. The family that lives on this desolated farm are completely horrified by the idea of housing a convicted murderer. So they try to avoid her and keep her at a distance. The only person who wants to understand her or see her version of events is a priest named Tati. The author took what really happened and meshed it together with a fictional story, and it works. I liked how it included snippets of real articles in the beginning of each chapter. Sure, this book was bleak, but it was also hauntingly tragic and really well structured. The words that came together is really beautiful, especially when reading Agnes's parts. I really felt like I was in her mind, and her thoughts were just tumbling out on the pages in such striking cohesion. This book wasn't a quick read for me at all, but I really enjoyed it and I'm happy I read it. Alright guys, that's my July wrap up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!